think I'm recording.
Yeah, you should see. Yep, I see it has started.
Good.
All right, I think now's a good time to start. Everyone, thanks for joining for the Education Institute. This one, Jim Haughey is giving a presentation on a book summary for the book called Drive, The Surprise Truth on What Motivates Us. I'll hand it off now to Jim Haughey.
Thank you, Aaron. Well, thanks for everybody that came along. This book, Drive, let me just tell you a couple things that I first of all had to reread the thing. I was just telling Joanne because I haven't read this book in 10 years, so I had to kind of reread it last week. And it was odd when I was rereading this thing is that it is almost like Daniel Pink is telling the future, because he's wrote this in 2009, I think. And some of the things he's talking about is hybrid working and remote working and some of the things we're going through right now. So it was really kind of very interesting. When I was almost getting goosebumps a few times when I was reading this thing, how it was almost eerie. I will say that the goal of this, as I say, all of these leadership book summary series, is that the goal of this presentation is to obviously review the book, but it really is to give you just enough information to have you interested enough to actually reading the book, because it's obviously you can't cover a summary of a book like this in 50 minutes. There's some things that I'll have to leave out. One of the things that I'm going to leave out is that when I say you in this PowerPoint, don't think of you as you personally, the person. When I'm saying you, think of it more as industry. So I'll be talking to you, but it'll be industry. It'll say like you, this is what motivates you. You may say, no, that doesn't motivate me. But my ask is that you don't think of it personally, but think of it as this isn't about you. Think of it as a leader. Think of it as you're the leader, that this is what your people do. Because what I'm leaving out of the book is when they say things like this motivates you, or this is what you do, and this is how you think, the book goes over all the scientific backup of that. I obviously can't cover that. It puts links to Peter Drucker and The Knowledge Worker and Carol Dweck and Mindset and all these other references. So by that alone, it kind of vets out, how it's saying what motivates you, or I would say, the worker of today. So I have to leave that out. So you have to give it not blind faith, but that's where you'd read the book and there's lots of references in the backup, but give it kind of not blind faith, but the benefit of the doubt that the science is behind when Daniel Pink is saying this is how your staff thinks. You may not know this, but that's how they think. So that's kind of the limitations of these sessions. So with that said, Drive is written by Daniel Pink. It is the surprising truth about what motivates us. And it isn't what you think it is. Traditionally, what people, and that's what this book will basically cover. So what drives you? What drives you? Is it money? Is it cars? How about fast cars? Fame. Does that drive you? Football. Does that drive you? And extra credit to figure out why I have that splashing water on the Fame. Who can get it? What's the reference? The movie Fame?
You're dating yourself, Jim. It's a movie from the 1980s.
So what drives us? The funny thing about what drives us is that we probably don't even know. And that's what this book is about. Okay, so what drives us? This is really what this book will cover right here, is better understanding of ourselves. There's behavioral economics books that they call this misbehaving. This book doesn't actually reference any of that because some of those books were written after this. But this book covers what Daniel Pink calls a new operating system that we have to adjust to. He goes over a little bit of carrots and sticks and why they don't work in most cases, although some they do. He goes over kind of the type X's and I's. That's kind of the personality assessment of the knowledge worker of today. And then really the meat of the book is what drives. And the argument for the book is that this is what drives your staff as a leader, as leading people. I'll tell you the secret first. It's not money, and I'll explain that. It is autonomy, mastery, and purpose. That is what drives people, and I'll try to make that a little bit clearer as we go in those parts. So first of all, let's talk about the new operating system. He uses references and analogies to computers. So the rise and fall of Motivation 2.0. He goes a little bit over Motivation 1.0. Motivation 1.0 was when we were cave people, and it was survival based. Motivation 2.0 is more the industrial age model, and he gives you this little story. Just imagine that it's 1996 right now. Imagine, go back, it's 1996. And Microsoft is just kicking butt. I mean, they just came off Windows 95. They were ruling the world. You may not know, but this is when Apple was on the downslide. The whole battle between Gates and Jobs was just, Gates was basically starting to kill Jobs. I mean, just knock him out in that battle. And in fact, a lot of people don't know later, it's actually Microsoft is what saved Apple. Not a lot of people know that. But actually, Bill Gates' investment in giving money to Apple. So this is back when they were rocking and rolling. And so just think of this. If somebody came to you with a crystal ball in 1996, and you're rolling to Microsoft and said, okay, we got two models here. We want to do the next great encyclopedia. And so you have Microsoft. We're going to come to you. You're going to hire the best technicians, the best academics on encyclopedias. You're going to pay people well. You're going to create this model of, you're going to have this online encyclopedia. And then you're also going to have CDs, actually, and tutorials and all this. And you put it together, and I come to you, and what do you think? And the next model would be get people to do it for free. Don't give them anything, no payment, no nothing, just do your encyclopedia that way. Now, you know where this is heading up. This isn't a big secret here. You know where this is building, right? Wikipedia went out. There's not an economist in the world, Daniel Pink makes the argument, that would have guessed that. It was about those 15 years that MSN and Carta, Microsoft just abandoned it. They said, we're done. Didn't work. Wikipedia was in. So when you look about this, why is that? The new operating system. It's because of this incompatibility problems with Motivation 2.0. He doesn't use the Peter Drucker language so much as a little bit, but the industrial age model. That's where we basically had the assembly lines, a high production, you were staff, and you're to do this, this, and this, and you get paid this. But the incompatibility problems with the Motivation 2.0 is that it has problems with how we organize what we do today, you know, and how we think about what we do. So how we organize what we do, think of it as why was Wikipedia successful? It was one word, well, I guess two words, open source. And so it was getting, you know, creating instead of the manufacturing, and I won't digress in the whole manufacturing argument, but as far as creating the workforce of today in the United States as that knowledge worker. It has a problem with that. How we think what we do. This is the most interesting thing that I can only touch. I really can't go into detail on it, but one of my favorite books is Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. And that is the study of behavioral economics. And what that is basically is that we don't know how we think. It turns the old economics on its head, supply and demand curve, throws it out and basically says, they call it misbehaving. We don't know how we think. We actually do things that are counter to our best interest and the economics of it all. So that's what's wrong with the old operating system. It doesn't adjust to that new science of behavioral economics, which is a talk on itself. I can't go into detail on that. I'll touch on it a little bit later. But basically, if we're still thinking the old model and the old Motivation 2.0, that if we give you this carrot, I'll get this out of you, which doesn't sound like very good language. You're not a horse. And it throws that out. And then the other incompatibility problem is how we do what we do. And if you look at the little photos that I put on, I'll give you the best way to explain this is the algorithmic versus the heuristic. And what it does basically is this is very close to what you do, because the top picture is a toll booth worker. It's routine, it's algorithmic. You do what you do, you get paid what you paid, and all day long, you know exactly what you're doing, the routine, and you're just doing it. That's the old age model. That's the old manufacturing model. But for the most part, our economy in the United States is not that. It's more the heuristic. It's the knowledge worker, the lower photo. That is what we do. But this isn't about us. It's about all of our industry in the United States. But that's what we do. We design roundabouts. We design the book, basically, just to be clear, and I put these because they're more to what we do. The examples the book used, instead of the toll booth worker, it used a grocery clerk. It does the same thing all day long. And then in the lower, it did a campaign an advertising company, because advertising is much more creative. And that's the whole point, is with the knowledge worker, what's driving our economy, although we do still need grocery clerks, but what drives in the emerging economies is our knowledge worker. And that's what's wrong with Motivation 2.0. So the argument he makes is we need an upgrade, and not just a new upgrade to the software, but we need a whole new operating system. So welcome to the new operating system, which is what he calls Motivation 3.0. Okay. And again, I'm using some Peter Drucker language as far as that's moving from the 2.0 is analogous to the industrial age model. The 3.0 is what Drucker would call the knowledge worker. And that's what you are. And it's also what drives our industry. Not our industry, our country. So what's wrong with carrots and sticks? So he goes through the whole basis of carrots and sticks is all based on the Motivation 2.0. It's the industrial age model is that if we pay you this, we'll get this, and you have to do this, and you have to do it this way. And so carrots and sticks, the problem with carrots and sticks is that they worked for so long. And there was value to it, and there still is some value to them. And he goes over that a little bit. So he quickly goes over the 7 deadly flaws of the carrots and sticks. They extinguish intrinsic motivation, diminish. You'll notice a little bit of a green-red text in this. You'll see in the rest of the slides, all these slides, the green is good, red is bad. Okay, so they crush creativity and they crowd out good behavior. Carrots and sticks are so last century. The example he gives in the book, and I can't get into it a whole lot, is he goes over the story, the Tom Sawyer story. You're familiar with that, hopefully, of the painting the fence. Is it work or play? Well, he convinces people that it can be, and that's a lot of the point of this book, is that the knowledge worker enjoys, and the activity is its reward. And so Tom Sawyer obviously convinced his friends to paint his fence, and he didn't pay them; they paid him to paint the fence. And then, so not only that, the 7 deadly flaws, the first 4, is that not only do they diminish and crush and deadly, they also grow what you do not want. So they grow the other 3. And by the way, so the other 3 is that they grow cheating, shortcuts, unethical behavior. How is that? How is that? Well, think of those publicly traded companies that have to meet their quarterly calls. There's Enrons, the cheating. If you're looking for that carrot, you're looking for that thing becomes your focus, not what you're doing. Now, when you're on the assembly line, you got to do that thing. It makes that model work. That's the Motivation 2.0. But in what you do and what the knowledge worker does is not creating that thing. It's innovation. It's design. And so the problem is you can't focus on the carrot. You can't. If your focus is on the carrot, the point is then that is the model of the Motivation 2.0. And so So the trick is that, you know, if you're focused on the carrot and that's the wrong focus, or obviously avoiding getting the stick, right? So I should say that he makes a point on this, carrots and sticks. This is a very, very important point too right now. The knowledge worker, all this talk and the carrots and sticks and where they are, is it's all based on fair pay. And I've talked to my managers about this all the time. That's the low bar. The carrots and sticks work if you're not paying people the right amount, what they feel is what they're worth, the industry, whatever the industry studies say that they're worth, they're never going to be happy. And this whole knowledge work nonsense doesn't work. So this makes the assumption that your company, you're paying your staff at least the fair value. But once that's, you've heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's a met need. And you're not going to just keep raising their money. You've got to, so then it becomes that so this is all based on basically that you have to have a fair pay. And that's all I'll say about that. So, but what if I like carrots? There are some places where carrots actually work. Going back to a little bit of the Motivation 2.0 model, the industrial age model, if items are routine, like that, you know, your job is routine, you know, there's certain, now, there's no job that's all routine and all deep thinking, you know, it's all, you know, there's a combination, but certainly in carrots and sticks, when things are routine, and he gives some examples of like competitions on doing posters for an advertising campaign, and you could do, that's where maybe a carrot might work, right? Because but deep thinking, if somebody is, think about it, if somebody's thinking of just getting that carrot you're going to give them, how deep is their thinking going to be? Their thinking's only going to be on the carrot, and that's the problem. So but there are places where the carrots would work, and that's routine tasks. And some of our jobs, my job included, have routine tasks. We all have some routine tasks, but it's fair to say, everybody on this call that I know, your job, we're paying you to think. Yeah, you need to create some product and draft some CAD files, but we're paying you to think. We're consultants. We're trusted advisors to our clients, hopefully. And then the point he makes there, and this is a really interesting one, is replace the if then with the now that. What does that mean? Well, be careful. Even when you decide that this is a good place for carrots, this in this particular situation, I think a carrot, maybe a micro bonus or something like that would care. The idea is to make sure you don't say, I will give you a spot bonus if you work the weekend, if then. Because if you do that, what are they doing? Again, they're thinking of all weekend long, they're thinking of the bonus, the carrot. They're not thinking of a very innovative design that you asked them to do on the weekend. Okay? Replace it with now that. And the idea there is, look, we need you to come in this weekend. I know that's not great, but it's the font is too small over here, but it gives you some on the PowerPoint, you'll be able to see it. It gives situations that you tell them the importance of the job, and you do all this, and they come in because they're a good worker, and all that other things is that they want to do well in their job and blah blah blah. But then you give them the unexpected bonus on Wednesday. After, don't tell them about it. Don't tell, because then it's not only appreciated. Well, I always tell people, don't give your wife or spouse flowers on Valentine's Day only. I mean, that's fine, but that's low bar. Give them flowers on a day they're not expecting it. So give them that bonus if you want to after they've done the task, and don't tell them about it, because their focus would be on the innovation, the knowledge worker, operative word knowledge, and then they're thinking, wow, that's a person that really appreciates me. And the book does go into appreciation with also just words. That's later in this presentation if I can get to it. But that person really appreciates my effort. And obviously you can't misuse that, because then they'll be expecting that now that, okay, I did that, now that. So mix it up a little bit, and the book goes over that. So that's the case for when carrots, and I'm not making a case for sticks, because I don't think there's a whole lot of place for sticks. I don't, even in some things I've seen in companies that, and the book actually, in fairness, doesn't give a real good argument for sticks, actually. So, okay, so now just real quick, just 2 slides on the type of personalities that fit motivation 3.0 model, and that would be the motivation 3.0. So I did not make these up. This was written 11 years ago. So when you see Donald Trump on there, he is basically saying, so if you look, type X, there's these two people, and he gives a little bit of a parallel with the type A and the type B personalities, but not quite. So the type X personality, that's that external, he wants the external personalities. They want external awards. Think in the short run, that quarterly report he's got to make. He gives the example, Enron, Jeff Skilling. Does anybody know the reference to Antonio Salerni? If I'm saying that right, anybody know that one? Look to the right and it'll give you a hint. Mozart, great movie. Amadeus. But and Donald Trump, they want those rewards now. Simon Cowell, that's all based on the second drive, that industrial age model. But the 3.0 is built on the new generation, what we're dealing with now. It's what Peter Drucker talked about, it, the intrinsic, the inherent satisfaction you get from your job. Now, you still need to be paid. This is not a game where, people just work for free like the Wikipedia, but the inherent satisfaction of the job well done. And I've told anybody that I've interviewed, you've heard me say this to you. I cannot hire you if you hate Mondays. I have no problem with you liking Saturdays better than Mondays. So do I. But Monday is just another day that you're going and you're doing your thing. If you hate Mondays, this isn't the job for you. And I've told everybody, I'm very transparent in interviews. I've told people that right away. So it's that intrinsic satisfaction. You're in it for the long run. You're not in it for that spot bonus, that care. You're in it for the career building, the developing people, the helping your society. So if you look, Warren Buffett's an example, Mofart as opposed to Antonio Salieri. That's how he says his name, Salieri. If you've seen that movie, it's a great movie. Donald Trump versus Oprah Winfrey. Simon Cowell versus Bruce Springsteen. Now, these are obviously opinions here, but they're not, full disclosure, they're not my opinion. These are right out of the book. And Hillary, I didn't know how to insert a table, so I just did a screen capture. And it was midnight last night when I was doing this. So cut me some slack, Hillary. So what is the truth about type I's? So we've already said that the type I, notice it's green, that is the one that's built. And he makes this argument because you can say, well, that's not me. I want that bonus. He makes the argument, not me, but he makes the argument that if you're not a type I, it's going to be tough for you to work in our new economy. Now, I'll go on to the truth about type I's. That's the buildup. The truth and good news about type I's. Okay? Type I's do not disdain money or recognition. You're not just do-gooders. Their behavior is a renewable resource. What does that mean? It's kind of confusing. What renewable? That means that if you truly have that inherent that you inherently like what you do, then that's renewable because you're going to have plenty more Mondays. And so certainly a bonus or a carrot is not necessarily a renewable resource. So that's what they mean by that. Like I said, they go into much more detail than I can go in here. But the behavior promotes a physical and mental well-being. They are almost always outperform type X's, especially in today's economy, today's knowledge worker economy that we have here. And here's the good news, is that they are born and made. If you inherently say, well, I can't relate to what Jim's talking about here, here, and here, that's not me. You can learn some of these tools to become, and there's a whole toolkit in the back of the book on how you can become, if you're not inherently the born part, type I, you can make yourself a type I, and there's ways to do that. And let's face it, and those of you probably heard me say this 100 times, I'm sorry for my redundancy, but not all of you work directly for me, is that I always say that, if you, and you've heard this, if you like what you do, what's the end of that? You'll never work another day of your life. So that's the payoff. So the type I, so this whole thing is the knowledge worker is the type I. That's the person that is the knowledge worker. They have that intrinsic value. And so type I's are driven by, and this is really the three things, the three elements of what drives people in our economy now, is autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And I'll go into those briefly. Okay, so autonomy drives. I will say that when you look at these three elements too, autonomy, mastery, and purpose, no company is a perfect model. There's just different levels. I've been with this company a long time now, and I've seen the ebbs and flows. I've seen it kind of go towards giving us more autonomy, taking a little bit away, going back. It's a little, but there's some companies that don't give almost any autonomy. But the essentials are the 4 T's. Is that you as the knowledge worker, because you're not the toll booth worker. We're not saying do it this algorithmic. I can't say that word. Well, you have freedom. You have freedom on the task, what we do, the time, when we do it, the technique, how we do it, and the team, who we work with. Now, let me go a little bit deeper because they're not all perfect, right? When he talks about the task, he talks a little bit, and I'll try to put it in our terms a little bit, is that we have something to do. And I always kind of, when I talk about the task, and again, those that know me well will hear my language over, is that, and probably roll their eyes because I say this all the time, is as a leader, I don't get into your means and methods. You're highly educated. You know what you're doing. I just need this road designed. The tasks that get there, that's means and methods. I don't tell you what to do. I don't tell them. I'm very, very blessed because I have an amazing team. And they know it. I don't even know if they're on this call, but Scott, Ryan, all my team leaders, these guys, I'm very, very lucky because I don't get into their business. And I always say that every now and then when I do, when I get into means and methods, when I get into your tasks, is because the outcome wasn't what we wanted. And I say we, not me, because we agree to what the outcome should be. And it's a learning moment. It's not a do it this way. I may have suggestions, but because I have such a great team of knowledge workers and leaders under me, because we're all in some form a leader, is that I don't need to get into their means and methods. They give me, they know what they need to do. They run, boom. And so that's kind of what the knowledge workers is what we do. As far as the technique is how we do it. The big book gives some examples. Let me see if I can refresh my memory on a couple. That doesn't. So the technique is, how we, it's a little bit means and methods, but it's a little bit different than the actual tasks of determining what you do. But if we agree on what you're going to do, it's how you do that task. So for instance, a task would be doing a profile on a road. The technique would be, are you going to use a pencil or are you going to use AutoCAD? So I'm just again, the freedom, it's about the freedom. Autonomy is that I don't tell you whether or not you're going to use a pencil or AutoCAD. I know you're not going to use a pencil. So I don't need to tell you that. And so that's that freedom there, that autonomy there. As far as the time, it's really interesting when he talks about when we do it. This kind of almost foretold the future of almost the hybrid working from home and in that he does make the point, how we just in August we're going to vote on not the flex time, but we're going to vote on, I always get this wrong, we're going to vote on the alternate schedule. That's not what this is. Okay, this is not, the time part here isn't he says that's too shallow. That's too shallow. This isn't that you're going to work from 7 to 4 or 8 to 5 or 9 to 6 or whatever. That's not what this is about. He makes that point. This time is that he uses the example of billable time. Now, wait a minute. Some of you may say, we bill our time, so we're not in this new this knowledge worker model. Our work is very limited. Even though you do bill your time to jobs, our jobs, for the most part, at least what we do, is a lot of lump sum. And even when we do bill our time, it's still getting a goal. And so what this time means is not that flexible or alternate time. This time is basically, I need that road design, or I need that planning document done. I don't care how much time you take. obviously with non-exempt employees, that gets tricky. But the point is this, is that let's agree that we can do it for this much money and do it however you do it. That's it. You have flexibility in your time. And the thing that's I felt, again, I used the word blessed. I feel very lucky because I heard some of our competition when we had this whole work from home thing. How do you know they're working? And how do you know they're working and working all those hours and all that? I have to tell you, I feel so lucky. I never thought that. I mean, I never thought that. I knew that the Joshes, that the Scotts, that the anybody on my team, that the Caitlins, I don't care if you're working from home. I know that you're working hard. And so that's that autonomy of time. That's what the book makes. So hopefully that makes clear. And so I truly feel I do give my staff autonomy in their time. But why? Because they've earned it and they deserve it. And then team. Choice on your team is that autonomy, right? No, wait a minute. I didn't choose my team. I got hired. I work with Carly, Scott, Ryan. The book does go over how this is probably the one that is most difficult for teams to give autonomy on what your individual team is, right? Because you don't always choose your boss, but sometimes you do. And if you think of it this way, and again, the people that work in my department will recognize my language here, is that you build your team. We run a department, we do certain tasks hired for our clients, right? But I do look and for my team leaders to talk to their project managers, to build their team. And it's not selfless for me. I don't grow if they don't grow. And then there's use that kind of the abundance mentality, if you will, not as opposed to the sum zero game, is that if I believe that, and I say, and I'd say, like the Caitlins and the Carlys, I say, get out there and make your hires. I mean, Robert Sariano is a great example. We hired him on. The first thing he did was start building his team. Yeah, when he got here, he had to work with a few people. He had to work with me. Poor guy, but he had to work with me, but he built his team. And so that's kind of, I digress a little bit, but I'm putting it in our world, kind of what he was saying. There is some limited control that you have on your team, but that doesn't mean you have no control. So there's some levels of autonomy you have on your team. Okay. Looking at my time, we're doing okay. So when you're given autonomy, the next driver is mastery. And remember, it's you, it's your staff. This is what drives it, mastery. So what is mastery? There's 3 laws of mastery. Honestly, almost every one of these bullets has got about 3 books written on it itself. But the 3 laws of mastery are that mastery is a mindset, mastery is a pain, and mastery is also an asymptote. So what does that mean? Well, mastery is a mindset. There's a book that came out by Carol Dweck, and he touches on this. And it basically, how do I best explain this? One of my favorite books, honestly. It's right here, and it's all torn up and tabbed. Can you see? Okay, the best example I can give to this is how I lead my kids. Now, I know you're not my kids, please don't take it that way, but I think you'll get the mindset. There's 2 different types of people in here, and that's the people with the set mindset and the growth mindset. Okay, there's a couple other ways that he describes the words, but think of it this way, is that one of the things that book goes over is, and this is so hard to do, any of you with kids will totally relate to what I'm talking about here, is if your kid is good at basketball, never tell them they're good at basketball. Oh my God, that's impossible, right? Tell them that you appreciate the effort they put into basketball. This is very important because it differentiates the set mindset with the growth mindset. The laws of mastery is the growth mindset, not the set. Let me explain. I tell my son Colin, man, you're a really good basketball player. Gosh, it's amazing how you make those shots and all this. That fixes in, and like I said, it's very hard for me to do because when he does well, I go, oh, you're so good at this. is what happens when he has a very bad game? What happens when that person, you tell them they're good at math and they fail a math test? They're crushed. Wait a minute, their whole identity was, I was a good basketball player, or I was good at math. That's what my parents always told me. The growth mindset is, and I tell my kids this because I do fail on this, is I really appreciate how much practice you put in a basketball column. I really appreciate how much practice you're doing into your piano. Because then when they have a bad basketball game, it's no big deal. The growth mindset is, I just need to practice a little bit more. I'll do it better next game. Huge point of this book right here, and that's the part of the mastery, is it if tying it to the idea of the type X is enjoying the task, is think of it as, and he talks a little bit about performance goals or learning goals. Keep it into the learning goals. They pay off in the long run because they're not end results. And that's about all the detail I can go into. The mastery is a mindset. Mastery is a pain. I don't think that needs a lot of explanation, but I'll give you a couple personal ones. Basketball is my favorite sport because I learned that when I was young. But I took up golf and after college. And I've played almost every sport except for soccer. Sorry, soccer players out there, or football players. I've played almost every sport. There's no sport that has frustrated me more than golf. I hate that game and I love it. And the other one is playing a musical instrument. That for me, this is very personal. I play guitar. I got to where I could play 100 songs, and my voice is so-so. But oh my, pain. I'll never forget how with golf, there's two games going on when I play golf. I want to play well. That's one, fine. All sports have that. And I want to do my best not to throw my club. And I'm not joking. That's not a joke. In that there's two games. It's the mastery over self. It's that self-discipline. It's a pain. The other thing is, honestly, with guitar, I'm a 3-chord master. I can play 100 songs with 3 chords. I'm a rhythm guitar player. But there's so many times I wanted to break that guitar over my coffee table. So mastery is a pain. And also, I want to be clear. I have not mastered either of those. And that leads me into my next point, was mastery is an asymptote. Mastery is that thing that and he gives some example with Tiger Woods, always trying to look better. It's an asymptote, as you can see by this diagram right here, that you'll get closer and closer and closer, but you'll never touch it. Even Tiger Woods says that. And that is actually the allure. Is that you can never get there, but you're always trying to be there. That's you've heard, it's the journey. I don't want to, but so mastery is an asymptote. Recognize that, recognize the learning part of the mindset. You put these together. Those are the laws of mastery. And it really is what drives people. Because let's face it, if you get a pay raise, and I've seen this, we've given pay raises to people, some more than others, if they're deserving. It feels good. For about 3 or 4 months. That is not what drives people. You're driving for 3 or 4 months. Is that what you want out of your staff? Is that what you want out of you? 3 or 4 months of happiness? That's the type X. You can go back on those slides. Okay, so always be seeking mastery. But you'll need a purpose, because that also is the last thing of the 3 elements that drives a purpose. He gives the example of the purpose motive. And he gives the example. He has a great quote in here. I should quote. It's really kind of funny. I don't know if I could get to it quickly. He used examples of the baby boomers. And let me see if I can find it, because it's worth 5%. I should I'm winging this because I should have purpose. Let me see. This is pretty funny. We know that statisticians and demographics is destiny. And we know that the Rolling Stones, that you can't always get what you want. What we don't know is what happens when these two indomitable principles sit down, pour themselves a drink, and get to know each other better. So he uses the example of the baby boomers, well, this is in 2009 we wrote this book. So the numbers he gave was that so many people are getting to age 60 and they're going, oh my gosh, how am I 60? There's three elements. There's just shocked. The first one is shock. How did I get to 60 so fast? And the second phase of the baby boomer, he used the example is well, we're living longer than we used to. I'll go 85 now, right? I got 25 more years. So, whew, whew. And then the third phase of the baby used example is now when you realize you only got 25 years left, what's my life for? What's the purpose? What am I here for? And again, this is something that may not relate to you because many of you aren't 60 here, or maybe you've never felt this, but those of you who've never felt, some of the young, I never thought of my purpose in life when I was 20, other than going to the beach and wearing sunscreen that I didn't do enough. But there will be that moment when purpose, and when you realize it, and trust me, I can't go into the detail on this, but there's been books upon books upon books. The best one that I'm familiar with is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. But it's you will have a purpose, whether you think that right now or not. And when you realize that you have what you have in money and you have your kids are, you will have a purpose if you don't. And some people get it. And he actually makes the connection that the baby boomers are more connected to the Gen Xers and the X, or not the Gen Xers, he says the millennials, than some of the Gen Xers, because it's kind of weird. It's almost like leapfrogging a little bit, but he makes the younger generations are getting their purpose actually faster. They don't wait until 60. Some of them, and you'll see that was kind of our good works that we have in our company. So to that point, there's, instead of the profit motive, there's that purpose motive, and that's what drives people. And he mentions in this last kind of chapter of this, he mentions how companies have goals, and he uses the example of companies can have these ethics statements, and they don't do that great because they're statements. But it's like, kids will do as you do, not as you say. You can write all the ethics that you want in the world, but it's how you act. Does your company act with a purpose? Does your company and does your leader, does your boss work with a purpose? And so there are goals, and he goes over that they really should be more learning goals and providing meaning. The other thing is in their words and in their policies, how they can set certain policies. A good example would be, I think our company has our diversity training. Now you can have, do you want your diversity program to be the old age affirmative action where you're checking boxes and I have to hire this many of this social economic disadvantaged person? Or do you want it to be part of your culture? And that's where I think our company does a good job. We have a group there, it's volunteer, that people get in that diversity training, and we're moving in that direction. And it's more on that purpose. Do we have that purpose? The other thing that talks about as a purpose is that think of your place of being and what is your purpose, but also what is better than almost your purpose is the purpose of a group, the purpose of a movement. And this can be your church group. It can be your group of friends. It can be your Peace Corps, whatever you do, or it can be your company. It can be your department. You can have a culture within a company. And we try to do that in my department, have a culture, and we stay closely connected to the company. But what is our purpose? And that is a sense of community. That's what drives people. If you know you're part of something, not just the purpose on what you provide or what you're going to do and do these things, is you're also part of this group. And I can tell you, I've been a pretty lucky person in my life. I've had some hardships, everybody does. There was a time that happened about 10 years for me that I went through some hard things. And I got to tell you, I've been with this company now 30 years, I have lots of friends. I'm very blessed. I have more friends than I have a huge family, Irish Catholic. Our Thanksgivings have 30 people, but I also had this group at work, and they were friends. They absolutely, that sense of purpose, that community I had, I tell you, they complemented what my family couldn't do. And it was awesome. And and then the purpose of the good life is which is a motivated life. And that's kind of the purpose of the book, is that motivation is drive. And Hopefully we went over a little bit better understanding of the new operating system, and the difference in what we're now dealing with the knowledge workers, where there is some locations where carrots work, and there's a lot of locations when carrots, and they do make emphasis on where carrots actually would de-emphasize people, and they gave examples, but I couldn't go into them. The type X's and I's, the knowledge worker now is, the type I's, and then those drivers that if you can't relate that they drive you, trust me, there's enough scientific study in this book and the books of Revs. It's what drives the knowledge worker today: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And those of you that know me well know I love Venn diagrams. So I had a little bit of nerd excitement when I found this on the internet. This Venn diagram that shows you right in the middle, and what is in the middle of the Venn diagram is drive. I like the way it goes the two too. So looking at the time, I think I am right on to the minute at 12:50. Woo! And I didn't rehearse this. Drive. So this is Daniel Pink right here. People at work are thirsting for context, yearning to know that what they do contributes to the larger whole. And that is the book Drive. So hopefully I gave you enough that interest you in reading the book, or there's actually some versions online that are quicker, and there's probably YouTubes too, although I haven't seen any. But there's and TED Talks. So with that said, it's 12:50. I had fun. Hopefully you did. And I truly believe the best way to learn something is to teach it. This helped me. This wasn't just about you guys. I had to pull this book back off, and I had to reread it. And I now know it a little bit better, and I have a few things that I think I can act on. With that said, I usually ask if there's any questions, but usually there are not. So, but I'll ask. Are there any questions people have? Everybody but Jake. All right, there usually are not. So.
What are you planning to act on, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, I'm going to review. There's a couple things I'm going to review with my team leaders. I'm going to ask them if they heard this, if they're not here. I'm going to ask them. We had part of our business plan is we had some things to explain kind of the purpose of what we do and that to their team. And I asked them to set up meetings, so I'm going to follow up on that. And that's my first ones. I think awareness and follow, because I knew some of these drivers they are in other books as well. I embedded some of this into our business plan. We do one for our department every year. It complements the business plan for the company. Trust me, those guys that know me know that this content is going to go into some. Plus, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pick up the damn guitar again. I haven't played it much except for the holidays, except for Jingle Bells, which is a very easy song to play. So, all right. Well, listen. Thanks. Hopefully it was good for you. I will make this. Well, Aaron will send you the streaming. Aaron, I'll dump this on the education folder like I always do, the actual digital file. So we'll have both. And upward and onward. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks for the invite, Jim. Good job.